Hi, Flosstube. Welcome back. My name is Amy. This is my Flosstube channel, Amy J's Creations. My third Flosstube. I am so happy and excited. I've gotten so many new subscribers since I posted my last video. I'm over 100 subscribers. So excited. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It's awesome. It's so fun to see that there's people who want to watch what I'm doing and have a conversation, shall we say, in the comments. So anyway, thank you very much. Okay. Once again, no new haul because, but I did get I got several free patterns. I went to the Fat Quarter Shop website, downloaded several of their Easter or spring free patterns, and stitched them up and had so much fun with them. So I want to show those. Well, I only stitched up one. I downloaded several more for later on. I have them ready and waiting. So the one that I stitched up is by Little Stitch Girl. I also watch her Flosstube. She's amazing. And it is her spring. Now, this came out last year as part of their Be Well and Stitch freebies that a lot of people were doing when everybody was on lockdown. And I thought her colors on this were perfect. It's everything. When I think of Easter, these are the colors that I think of. I think she did a fantastic job. I love it. So I stitched that up on some mystery Aida that my mom gave me. It was a little scrap. It was just big enough for this. And then to finish it, I used Lori Holt's Simple Shapes for applique because I'm also a quilter. So I have those and made a little flower and put it on some board. I don't usually make flat folds because it's, to me, it uses up too much of the mat board that's so hard for me to get as it is. So I usually just make them a flat and lean them up against something that seems to work with how my decor is. So that's what's going to happen with this one. And it's interesting, when I was finishing this, I really wanted to put a big yellow bow right here. And I looked at it and I looked at it and I looked at it and I just wasn't sure. So finally I called in the big guns. I got my youngest daughter to come and look at it for me. And she was able to give voice to what I was feeling. And that is, the bow is really super cute. And your eye goes directly to the bow when it's on there. And then afterwards you go, oh, right, there's cross stitching. And I didn't want that. I wanted people to go, look at that cute cross stitch. So we took off the bow and instead I just added a little teeny tiny one by the flower because it did need, I wanted to have a little bit of 3D something. And otherwise, and then called it good. Love this pattern. And so I like this pattern, these colors so much that I downloaded Helen D's free pattern and used those colors, so Jordan's Little Stitch Girl's colors, to make this pillow. This was so fun. Okay, what I love about this pattern is peeps are the absolute best thing about Easter. Guess what they don't sell in Switzerland? Peeps. There is, however, an American base in Stuttgart. And we're not allowed to just willy-nilly go up there, because we're not military. You have to know somebody who can sign you onto the base. And in years past, we currently have a friend who's living there, but they're getting transferred to Oklahoma or something this summer. So when I get up there, it's always an extra special treat. But my friend, she went last year. No, she went 2 years ago. And brought me back a whole bunch of peeps. And I'm still eating them 2 years later. And I'll tell you why. Stale peeps are the only good peeps. You either have to eat them super fresh the second you open them, or you have to wait. And the longer you wait, like minimum of 2 months, but really 4 is best. Because then they get that, So nice and hard. The ones I just finished last week, that package had been, you got to slice the package open so some of the air can get in to help them get stale. I found a couple where I'd sliced the package open and then stuck them in a Ziploc bag and hidden them in the back of the pantry. They have been there for literally a year and a half. And they were super crunchy and really good. Now I'll tell you a story. Why do I love stale peeps? When I was younger, me and my 5 brothers, the Easter Bunny did not leave our treats in our baskets. Our baskets were placed outside of our bedroom door, and they usually had one of those large See's chocolate eggs that are decorated all fancy. See's Candies is in Utah. I don't know where. I know it's in California, I think. Anyway, they sold these big chocolate eggs that we each got one with our names on it, decorated all fancy. That was in our basket. Sometimes we got a small present like a new tie or a new purse or a new hat to wear to Easter Sunday church. And then the rest of the candy was hidden around the house, like loose jelly beans, loose peeps, loose chocolate eggs, all over the house. This started because the very first Easter that my oldest brother was like aware, he woke up and came into my mom and dad's room and said, "No Easter Bunny come." And my mom went, "Oh, we forgot to do the Easter Bunny." So she says, "Well, maybe he hid the treats. Why don't you go with Dad and take your basket and look around?" And so as my dad is leading my brother around the house, my mom is in the other opposite side of the house, hurrying to hide the treats that she bought and forgot to put in his basket. And that tradition stayed then for the rest of time. My kids, the thought of the treats being out and open kind of gives them the squicks, the eekies, and so we put all stuff in their baskets. But so what happened every single year is around July, August, you'd be sitting on the couch in the living room and you'd go, there's some candy over there that she had hidden too well and we hadn't seen. And often they were peeps. And by this time they were stale. And that is how I came to love stale peeps. So good. So I had to do this pattern from Helen D with the peep on it and marshmallow because it's the best part of Easter. I think it's so amazing that she offered this pattern for free. It's super cute. It was quick and easy, except for that I got a little off count on this one. I was trying to stitch in the car and messed up. Noticed as soon as the J was finished and went, "Oh, it won't matter." And then as I got to like the B, went, "It'll matter because then there's not room for these guys." So I ripped it all out and restitched it. I had a hole dug through all my fabric scraps. I have so many, and happened to find fabric that seemed to match pretty well the colors in here. And I even found some buttons that matched pretty well. Sewed those on. This is only the second time I've tried to sew rickrack around the edge. I will show you my other pillow where it was the first time. I had to do that one twice. This one I only had to do once. I think it came out okay. Pretty happy with it. But in order to do the rickrack then, rather than my normal method of just whip stitching the bottom closed, I sewed all the way around and then made a slit and flipped it out, and then I sewed on this little felt flowers. This is an old felt flower from Stampin' Up! From years ago. And this is some cheapy felt flower I found in the craft section of the store here. Sewed that on to cover up the hole. Used more of this purple gingham from the back. I kind of wanted everything to like coordinate, not be matchy, but at least coordinate. So and I had a bunch of this. It's almost gone now. And then just stuffed it with fiberfill because that's what I have. So cute. I cannot wait to add this to the little Easter display I'm having. Okay. So Now, I have a confession to make. And I had realized I hemmed and hawed about if I was even going to show this one or if I was just going to pretend it didn't exist because I didn't want to be part of some drama, have the cross stitch police come after me. And I know people always say there's no cross stitch police, but I think there might be in this case. But here's the deal. Lizzie Kate stopped producing patterns a couple of years ago. That's fine. She retired. That's great. She sold the copyrights to 123 Stitch. So unless you happen to stumble upon a needlework shop that still has some of her old patterns laying around that they never sold, the only way you can get Lizzie Kate's patterns is through 123 Stitch. Now, I had seen a pattern, an Easter pattern of hers on Instagram, on Pinterest, finished, and it was so cute, and I really wanted it. So I went to 123 Stitch and typed in the name in their search bar, and nothing came up. So then I just typed in Lizzie Kate and scrolled through every page of their Lizzie Kate stuff and could not find this pattern, which means it's not one of the ones that they have re-released. They have not re-released all her patterns. I had a pattern to this design that I had found on Pinterest when I looked up free Easter designs a couple years ago when I didn't even know who Lizzie Kate was. But I wanted to buy the pattern if I could. But like I said, 123 Stitch didn't have it. So then I searched around. The only place I could find it for sale was on eBay. Now, this is a tiny pattern. And the price was a reasonable price, but she wanted like $18 shipping. Not to Switzerland, to the States, because that's the way she can make more money. And I went, that money's not going to Lizzie Kate. That money's not going to 123 Stitch. This is just going to this lady who's gouging fellow cross-stitchers. So I went ahead and used the pattern that I got off Pinterest to make this pillow. Now, I will say, if in the future this pattern gets re-released on 123 Stitch, I will buy the pattern. I have done that for another Lizzie Kate. I was doing the Christmas rules. They didn't have one set of the rules that I needed. I kept waiting. My daughters were coming for Christmas. There was a limited window of when I could get it. Because again, I can't order all the time. They didn't have it. But it was a simple enough pattern that if I looked at the finished project and blew it up, I could cross stitch it. So I did. And kept checking back to 123 Stitch. And when it became available, I bought the pattern and had it sent to my daughter and in the States. And then when the next time she came over, she brought it to me. So I've done that in the past. I will know that in the future. So anyway, using my free pattern on Pinterest, I stitched Lizzie Kate's Chicks Rule. I did not have any of the called for fancy floss. And normally I don't think the patterns that call for it really need it, except for in this case, these chicks, they did have quite a bit of surface area and I didn't want them to just be solid yellow. So what I did is I got 3 different, in DMC, 3 numbers close together, 744 was one of them, 742 and 743, I think, and just kind of graduated and made my own shading. I did try to make my own little beak buttons that I saw in the original pattern out of Fimo, but the ones I made, this is like tiny count Aida too. I think this is 18 count Aida. So the buttons that I made, even though I thought I was making them so small, like covered the entire chick's face, like his whole head. So I just grabbed some orange and stitched that on there. Then I had a little piece of green rickrack. This is, like I said, I wanted to add the purple rickrack. This is the first time I ever tried it. The first time I didn't have the rickrack in far enough, so when I flipped the pillow out, you could barely see any. I mean, like right here, there's another, it's kind of slightly problematic, but it's much better than it was. It was like, did you put rickrack on that pillow, Amy? Because I'm not seeing it. So I unstitched it all, replaced it down, stitched it, basted down the rickrack, sewed the pillow again, cut a slit in the back, flipped it inside out, and I was much happier with it the second time around. And then I had an old yo-yo left over from when thought I would do some on a quilt, and I was practicing how to make them. Decided I didn't like the look for that quilt, but I kept the yo-yos, and I just sewed it on the back of here just for something fun and different, and because the gingham kind of matched. So that is my somewhat naughty copyright stolen pattern of Lizzie Kate. Chicks rule. Like I said, if it ever becomes available again on 123 Stitch, I will buy the pattern. I have no problem doing that. I don't want to cheat the designer out of the money. I don't want to cheat 123 Stitch, who paid a bunch of money for the copyrights, out of their money. I didn't think the lady on eBay who was going to net $32 for a pattern this size needed the money. Sorry. I will go into a little bit later when I talk about life in Switzerland of why I have even less of a problem doing that. But okay. So my final finish that I have for today is my Happy Easter. I just finished this like an hour ago. Well, no, I finished stitching it 3 hours ago. I finished putting it together 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago. I at first wanted to do sort of like a cursive script for the happy, but I couldn't really find one that was going to fit right. They were all going to be too tall. So I went ahead and used a pattern out of, I had the book out and then I put it away. Oh, well, it was like for wedding samplers. They had several different alphabets in the back that you can personalize the wedding sampler with. And so I just used that. I chose one of the colors that I liked, this darker pink that was in there. And I had seen on Instagram, somebody else had finished one of their Easter designs. It wasn't this one, on this cute little white picket fence that I'm sure they bought at like Hobby Lobby or Walmart. Did I mention that there's no Walmart or Hobby Lobby on the continent where I live? But I could not get that picket fence out of my mind. I was like, with all the flowers and it's so gardeny, I was like, I have to have this on a picket fence. So I made a picket fence. Here in Europe, we don't have box spring mattresses. I mean, they're starting to sell them some places, but they're really not the norm. They're like a special thing. What they sell here is they have these wooden slats that are spaced evenly, and they have like a slight bend in them, but they're very sturdy. They're held together with like a canvas cord kind of thing, flat, and they lay in the inside of your bed frame. The neat thing about them is that you can then, all beds can be raised up. You can raise up your feet on even the fancier ones, but you can always raise up your head so that you're not sleeping flat. But these, because they're not one solid piece of wood, but they're little slats, they can be raised and lowered so that you can sleep. It's really handy when like my kids were little and they had a cold and were congested. They could sleep slightly sitting up, and so everything would drain down their throat. Kind of gross, I know. But anyway, We had bought someone a new bed and got them the new, they're called, I can't think of the word in German or in English. Anyway, we had gotten new set of these wooden things that go on the bottom. So we had some extra that were loose. And they were in the garage to go to recycling. And the last time I went to the dump, I had forgotten they were in the back of the car. I'd already paid for the amount that we had in the car. So I just left them for the next trip. And so I went down to the garage and got a couple of those, sawed them with my handheld saw out on the balcony, painted them, and then glued them together with some sticky foam core that I brought back last summer from Hobby Lobby and made a picket fence. And I'm so happy. I love it so much. For the ribbon right here, I dug into my, millions and millions of miles of ribbon and found another pink that matched some of the pink that was in the design. Ruched it. Well, what I did is I sewed it on my sewing machine with a basting stitch and then did it that way, much faster than with a needle and thread. These, I have 2 more of these little nests. Were the only Eastery spring finishing items I could find in my grocery store. They were sold in a pack of 3. They didn't have anything in them. These eggs that are in here were from some old wooden Easter tree ornaments. Easter trees are a big thing here. Usually you can do it on like a bush in your front house. I have some plastic pussy willows that we put in a vase with some rocks on the bottom so it doesn't tip over, and you hang little Easter ornaments and eggs and stuff on your Easter tree. And these had fallen off, broken some of the old wooden ornaments, and I had them just laying around, and so I hot glued those into the nest, glued that on here, and then this will also, I covered a button with fabric, more ribbon from my never-ending ribbon supply. And this will also go in a place where it can just lean up against something. I was trying to figure out a way to kind of, jury rig a stand. But then I realized I could do that for display. But then every year when I put it away in the box of Easter decorations, that would get mangled and broken off. And I'd have to make a new one every year. So I just left it off. And I'll just lean it up against something in the fireplaces where I have, because we never build fires in the fireplace. That's where we have a lot of my displays, my seasonal displays. I am so happy I finally did this pattern. I've had this pattern for years and years and years and years, like 20 years. And always wanted to do it. Always felt like, oh, there's so many color changes. It's good, and the happy and the Easter, both this way, seem too much. But watching Flosstube gave me the idea that I could only do part of the design and have it work for me and what I wanted. So thank you to everybody who gives me permission to make it your own. And I did just that, and I love this. I love it so much. Okay. So what I thought I would also show you now is my second oldest cross stitch that I ever made. And it's one of only 3 things that are hanging in our house on permanent display. All other cross stitch is seasonal. It comes out for holidays and then it gets put away again. And the one main one that we have is a lavender and lace wedding sampler that my mother made for us. It's hanging in our living room. I will show that another day. It's so awesome and amazing. It deserves its own show. But this one is in our bedroom. I completed this the first year we were married. You can tell that it was in the 90s because of the awesome double matting and the frame. At the time, the house we lived in, the bedroom was all decorated in forest greens because, 90s. And so it doesn't really go with our decor anymore, but I don't care. I I had so much fun stitching this, and it's still true. Chris was my best friend then, and 25 and a half years later, he's even more of my best friend now. And so this hangs in our bedroom, and I the amount of detail in the stitching, I hope that the glass is like a non-glare glass, but I don't know how that's working out. The stitching and shading that they got, the new patterns are great. They're so cute. But the old style with all the color changing and the back stitch, man, the detail you get is just, you can't beat it. So I love this. The other cross stitch is one that I started when my first son was born. I started this when I was pregnant with him, but I was still working full time. And I remember finishing it when my Chris we lived in Houston for a summer while he was finishing or doing his internship in between the first and second year of MBA school at Compaq. And when Nicholas would nap in the afternoons, I would work on this. And I finally finished it, I think, just as we got back to Provo for him to go finish at Marriott School of Business in Provo. And I didn't frame this till we moved to Switzerland. And I think Nicholas at that time, I think Noah was born, and I put it in their room. So it was, no, Noah wasn't born. Sorry, that's a lie. But Nicholas was 4 or 5 years old by the time I finally framed it. It had been sitting done that whole time for like 4 years, and finally I framed it. And he just recently kind of redid his room. I mean, he's 22 now, and he was like, "Mom, the bears are not really, I've had them in my room this entire time. I'm bequeathing them back to you." And I said, "That's fine. The sentiment of families are forever still works. It's in our hallway now, instead of in his bedroom, and I still love it." I decorated his very first nursery with Boyd's bears, again, 90s, and lots of other teddy bears, and so this was perfect. It was going to be perfect in there. Not that it ever got framed or hung up, but I really like that there's a grandma and a grandpa bear, and I love the sunflowers. Blue is my favorite color, so it just hangs up in the hall all the time, and I really like that. So those are two of my older finishes. So what are my plans for this coming week? Well, it's Easter this weekend, and it's also, our church has a thing called General Conference where there's 6 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday of live broadcasts over the internet. So there will be a lot of cross-stitching in my future. But there's also Easter preparations. So not as much time as in past conferences where I just like sit and stitch the entire weekend. Saturday afternoon, because there's a time difference from when the broadcast is, so the first one doesn't start till 6 o'clock at night. So Saturday afternoon, several of the American families are getting together and doing a Easter forest egg hunt. And they're going to have the little kids walk through. There's a big loop in the forest, and at each little station, they're going to have little games where they can win Easter treats. And so my husband and I and the 2 kids that are still living at home, we're going to go help out with that. I've been asked to make Rice Krispie treats to pass out to the kids. I'm going to do them and like roll it out really thin in a cookie sheet, and then I have a egg shaped cookie cutter that I think I'm going to cut out with them. And I have some white chocolate I can melt, and I have some special food coloring that you can put in the white chocolate to tint it. And I'll, make them look like decorated Easter eggs and then wrap them up in saran wrap individually with more ribbon, because I got lots of ribbon to pass out. So we're going to do that on Saturday. Tomorrow is Good Friday. Everybody is home. And Monday, everybody is home because it's Easter Monday. We get that off too. And I have a funny story about that. So when my two daughters first moved back to Utah to go to school, to live with my aunt and uncle and attend high school, that they were not used to when vacations were, because vacations here in school work differently. And so I remember Sarah, she told me the story. She went up to a girl and said, "Hey, when do we get off for Easter? Do we get Good Friday off?" And a girl looked at her and she's like, "Good Friday? What is that? I think, isn't that a Jewish holiday? We don't get off for that here." And I just laughed because I'm like, well, I mean, the first Good Friday did take place during Pascha Fest, Passover. So kind of a Jewish holiday, but like also kind of the exact opposite of a Jewish holiday, because we're celebrating, well, not celebrating, but remembering Christ dying on the cross. So we just love that's become now family lore. Isn't that a Jewish holiday? So everybody will be home tomorrow. We'll dye Easter eggs. So there'll be a lot of Eastery things. But during conference, I have decided I want to start a new start. And I hope you can see this. It's the Joyful Expressions free chart. His name is Jesus. You get it by subscribing to their newsletter, which I am going to continue to receive because I looked on their website and I like several of their designs. They're almost all PDF, which is great for me, but I'm going to start with this one. I'm not sure what colors I'm going to use. I'm going to decide that tonight after I finish filming this, but I'm really looking forward to doing this design. And I think I'm going to have it be my Sunday stitch. I like the idea of having that as a Sunday stitch. So I'm going to be doing that. My son is going, university holidays are different here. He has a super long break at Christmas time. He doesn't go back until mid-February, but then he doesn't get a spring break because school gets out like in June, I think. But they do get a week off for Easter starting. So he gets Good Friday off and then he gets a whole nother week. So he and a friend are going down to Grindelwald. It's a area in the mountains in Switzerland. They're going to be gone from Tuesday until Saturday. And so I think I'm going to take advantage of that time. And rather than cross stitch a whole bunch, I'm going to concentrate on reorganizing my second craft space. So I have this whole room. But then in his bedroom, because it's a huge room, I have a corner where I also have a desk and I have a lot of paper crafting items. So and it's been kind of a chaotic mess as I've moved some of that stuff from there into here. But he doesn't like me in there when he's home because he's on school, he's working, he's watching, seminars, school classes online, and it breaks his concentration when I'm in there working. So it's just been being a disaster area. So when he's gone, I'm going to be working on that, I think. And then I'll work on my Jesus piece, and I will work on the Little Bo Peep cross stitch that I'm finishing for my mom. So those are my future plans. Okay, so now I've talked a little bit about how holidays are different in Switzerland, but I want to go to the copyright thing. So here in Switzerland, they make it a point to say explicitly U.S. copyright laws are too complicated for the average citizen to understand. Until they rewrite them, make them more understandable and easy, we will not be enforcing them. We do not, they don't acknowledge their existence, so to speak. What that means is you can download for personal use only music, TV shows, movies with no fear of punishment. Now, they are very strict about that it's for personal use only. There was an article in the paper several years ago where a dad had downloaded a movie that was currently in the theaters playing and showed it at his child's birthday party as part of the entertainment. One of the little kids went home and told his mom, "Mom, guess what? We watched," I think it was like Finding Nemo. I think we watched Finding Nemo at the party. And his mom was like, "But they didn't say you went to the movie theater?" "No, we watched it at his house." And like the good Swiss citizen she is, she called the police and said, "My kid watched a movie that's still in the theaters at a birthday party." And the dad got a huge fine for it. If he had downloaded that movie and only watched it with his family, no problem. Nothing would have happened. The fact that he showed it at a birthday party with other people, he got in trouble. So because of that attitude that is here in Switzerland, we watch all kinds of movies that we download off of sites. And they're excellent. We go to the theater too when we're allowed. But we watch a lot of movies that have just been downloaded. And we listen to a lot of music that we've just downloaded. I don't do it. I don't know how to, but my husband does. Because it's not illegal. It's completely fine here. And so that's why I was like, this pattern is on the internet. I can't get it any other way. It's not being sold in a way that will benefit, like by a shop that I can have access to, an online shop. So I went ahead and stitched it. Am I passing that pattern out to other people? No. As soon as I was finished stitching it, I trashed the pattern and deleted it off my Pinterest board. Yeah. So maybe, please don't yell at me in the comments. Don't tell me I'm horrible. Like I said, if it ever becomes available on 123 Stitch, I will buy the pattern. But I wanted it and I had it and they weren't selling it. So that's what we did. Other plans. Sorry, man, my brain. The other thing I'm going to be working on is quilting. I need to make a quilt for my daughter. She's been waiting over a year. We designed it together. I ordered the material on Spoonflower, had it specially printed. She wants a Hunger Games and a combined Hunger Games Harry Potter quilt, Ginny and Harry, and Peeta and Katniss quilt, and with Minky on the back to snuggle up, watch TV. And I've had the material out on my cutting desk for over a month and I've just been cross-stitching. So I'm also going to be working on that. So next Flosstube will still be in 2 weeks, but I will only have some of Jesus's name to show you, but I will have hopefully a finished quilt to show you. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble on. Thank you to everybody who comments. I've been trying to respond or at least liking all the comments that have been left. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed. If you want to watch me some more, please push the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. YouTube isn't like tracking your movements at all. It helps me and my numbers. And I hope you have a great stitchy time in the next little bit. I hope you have a wonderful Easter if you celebrate. We clearly do. Spring renewal, life renewal, it's just a wonderful time of year, very joyful and hopeful, and we can definitely all use that, I think. So this is Amy saying goodbye and have fun stitching.